We're going to start with using Adobe Illustrator's pen tool. And remember from earlier in the challenge, the difference or the main difference between using Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop is that Illustrator is going to create vector graphics for you. So this is what your artists use so that they can create one image and resize it, and then it stays clean because it's not pixelated like what Photoshop files do or bitmap images do. So I have a file for you to start with in the Campus Share Drive, just as a reminder of where you need to go. You'll find an Illustrator folder, and this is the file you need. Go ahead and double click to open it. And the first thing that we're going to do before we get started on it is go ahead and save it so that we save it into the correct spot. Now remember that by default it tries to save it into the same place that you opened it up. So you are going to need to go to your OneDrive and you are going to need to create a new folder, call it Illustrator, and then rename this file your period number, your last name, and then keep pen tool and of course the file extension that shows that it's an Adobe Illustrator file. And then click OK. So what we have here is a template. I'm going to hit Control-0 so that I can see it full screen at this point in time. And you are going to have a layers panel just like you did in Photoshop. You have two layers here. You have one layer, layer 1, that has a lock next to it. That's where all of the things are. Keep it locked, okay? That's how you're going to keep everything working correctly. You want to work on the file that says work here. So your pen tool is right here. If I click and hold it down, I want you to see that you actually have some other pen tools with it, or tools that work with the pen tool, but this is the one that we're going to use for right now. We're going to start off by making our fill color transparent because all we're working on here are lines. So I'm going to make that transparent. I'm going to make my line red. I'm going to use the bright red, and I'm going to increase the stroke size to 2 points. Okay? And I'm going to be working right here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit more to make this easier for you to see. The first one we're going to do is pretty quick and easy, and it's straight lines. And you can see that there's numbers on it, and that's just to help guide you so that you know where to go next. So obviously we want to start with number 1 and we're going to work to 2, so forth and so on, so that we can make these straight zigzagged lines. Okay? So the way we use the pen tool is by clicking and creating anchor points. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here next to the 1, and you can see it created an anchor point. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on the 2, or just below the 2, to create another anchor point. You see it created a line in between there. I'm going to go into 3, and then I'm just going to continue this path until I get to the 7, and I have a red zigzag line. It's basically covering the path that I drew for you in the template. And you can see that to create straight lines with the pen tool, you simply have to click, move somewhere else, click again, and it's going to create a straight line in between. Now, in order for you to deselect, because you can see at the moment, if I move my pen tool and click, if I went down here to click, it's going to create a path in between. That's not what I want. So I need to control click, and that is going to deselect my pen tool so that I can move on to the next one. Okay? So this next one also has straight lines in it, but I want you to see that instead of everything being diagonal like in the zigzag, we have horizontal, vertical, as well as diagonal lines. So using the same settings with our pen tool, we are going to follow the numbers as we did in the previous one. And I also want you to, after you click to make your first anchor point, I want you to hold down your shift key. And I want you to notice that when you hold down your shift key, you can see that it's only going to let you go 45 degrees at a time. Okay, so it's keeping a specific type of line for you. Okay, so I hold down my shift and I click over here on the 2. And again, I hold my shift, go to the 3. And it's not letting me go just off center. It's going exactly where I want because I am holding the shift key down each time I click. Okay, so everything is perfectly straight. Again, in order for me to deselect the pen and quit using it, I have to hold my control key down and then click off of it. Notice that when I hold my control key, look what tool that is that kind of pops up. That's the direct selection tool. So it's basically selecting the white background. All right. So this next one we're doing gets a little trickier. These are the curved lines. And you can see that you have 4 numbers here. So obviously, you know, if I was using the same method I did before, I should be able to click, 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 and click. But that's not working. All that's doing is putting straight lines in, which is not what I want for this. It needs to be curved lines. So that's where these triangles come in. Okay? So what we're going to do, and you might want to watch me finish first and then you come back and try it. I'm going to click next to the number, but instead of clicking and letting go, I'm going to click and keep my mouse down. So I'm going to do a click and drag up to the arrow. Okay, so here I go, click and drag, and notice this line it creates. It's not a line like what we did in the above. These lines are actually called Bezier handles. And a Bezier handle is simply a control that allows you to come back and change the curve of your lines. Okay, so now I let go, now that my Bezier handle is up there, and now look what follows. This is my line, and so I'm going to come over here next to the 2, and again, I'm going to click and drag. This time I'm dragging down to the B. Okay? And same thing. It's following the curve now. So here it goes again. And now it's not perfect when I click on the 3, but that's okay because I'm going to click and drag up to the C. Again, click and drag down to the D. And now I can control click off and I have my curved line. So once again, just a reminder as you do yours, click next to the number and drag up to the letter. So it's a click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And that makes your curved lines. All right, so now we're going to go down to the hinged curved lines. Now this one's a little bit different because our curves are all going the same way on here. So instead of it being a big wavy line, it's got these hinges in it. Okay, so this is what we're going to have to do. And again, watch me first and then you can come back and do it again. So I am going to click and drag to create my first anchor point with a Bezier handle. Okay, then look, as I come over here, I'm going to click. This time I'm dragging down because I'm dragging away from the curve. Now here lies the change. Instead of letting go at this point, because if I let go and just did this, see what happens? Okay, so let me undo so I can get that again. I'm going to click and drag. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my Alt key down. And now look what happens when I move with the Alt key down. It takes the other side of that Bezier handle and allows me to bring it up to match where the original one is. So then I can let go of my mouse, let go of my Alt key, and if I go back here to the 3, I'm able to make that curve up at the top. So now I hold my Alt, I bring it back up, let go, and then I finish it down there. And again, Control click to deselect. And there are your hinged curved lines. So if you remember how to do it, remember to hold the Alt key down or rewind and you can follow along with it this time. Now, the next one, the curved into straight lines, is pretty simple. Again, we're going to click and drag to make our anchor point. And then I'm going to click and drag to make the curve. Now, the difference here is it's now going into a straight line. So now I need to get my Alt key, and you can see that I made my little anchor point just above that line, but that's okay. I'm going to make my Alt go over here to change the direction of my handle because that's the direction I want the pen to go now. So I'll let go, and now I'm going to hold the Shift key so I draw a straight line, and there it is. Control click to deselect. Okay, so now I am going to use my, oops, I didn't mean to click. Oh, let go. Okay, so let me delete that real quick. I've got my same settings. This one is going to be a little bit different because it's going from a straight to a curved. So I'm going to click to make my first anchor point, click again to make the second, or actually Shift and then click. That gives me a straight line. Now, notice while my pen is still positioned over that second anchor point, notice how it has the little arrow next to it, just below to the right. That is actually going to convert the type of anchor point that it is. So if I click there now and drag up, this is actually a Bezier handle that it's dragging up. And now if I let go, ta-da, it has a curve because that was a handle, and I can drag down to finish with that curved line. And then I can Control click to deselect. So the pen tool can be a little tricky. Some people have a lot of trouble with it. And the only way to get better at it is to practice. So when we have these, you want to practice it, don't get frustrated, and keep doing it over and over until you get it done correctly. So now that that part is done, I'm going to go ahead and hide the eyeball on that bottom one. Just go ahead and do a Control S to save. That's going to save the Illustrator file so that you have something to go back to and edit, okay, if you needed to. And once you have it saved as an Illustrator file, then you're going to want to go to File, and you are going to do an export, save for web, and we're just going to close that. Up here is how you can choose your file type. We're going to go ahead and make it a JPEG. That's going to give it the solid white background. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. There you can see that it's all there. And hit save. It should save it into the same place. Whoops, it doesn't. Mine goes into Documents. So you are going to have to check and make sure that yours is going into the same place. And it's going to be a JPEG with the same file name, and you should be able to go to where's my OneDrive? Illustrator. Here it is, my Illustrator and my JPEG file. Both of them are there, and the JPEG is the one that I will want to upload to my Canvas portfolio.